Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know I promised you guys a Christmas video, but I just had to talk about this. So I hope you're ready to hear your favorite Star Stable YouTuber speak about this silly little horse game for much longer than she should, considering she has assignments due next week. So, Star Stable just released their November dev blog, and this installment talks more about the much anticipated character update. There are some interesting bits of insight into Star Stable's thought process and overall vision for this overhaul, so I wanted to share my thoughts on these. The first thing I'd like to note is how Star Stable have acknowledged their misuse of the term beta test. This was something that bothered me from the very beginning and also caused quite a few concerns for me. A beta test usually would have meant that this was the final and polished product, being given to testers just to find any bugs or glitches, and that's obviously very problematic as the characters we were shown were very clearly unfinished, or at least I very much hoped that they were. And while Star Stable still claim either term could be used, many do agree that alpha would have been much more appropriate. They then claim to be more careful in naming their future projects, which I do appreciate. Now, onto what I wanted to speak about most regarding this blog. Star Stable have officially released a statement regarding the overall feedback we, the players, gave them during the alpha test. I'm gonna keep calling it the alpha test, sorry, I don't like the term beta test. As I'm sure many of you saw, the main points being raised were a lack of body shape and diversity. This is where I start getting a little confused. They state here what their vision for the update is, so I'll just explain that and then share my thoughts with you. So, Star Stable claim that their vision is to represent, quote, the average girl, but are limited by the body types they can display right now. They explain that they have a future-proof system but have to be mindful of older operating systems and graphics cards. They then state that the automatically adapted clothes and animations during the testing gave the wrong impression of how the bodies looked, but they have now finished refitting the clothes. They have increased the breast size of 2 models and tweaked the skinniest body too. They tell us that, quote, even if you can't find the perfect body for you when released, you will at the next body update. So, now time for my thoughts. First of all, what does average girl mean? This is such a vague term that could relate to literally anything. Average weight, average shape, average height. To throw this term at us and not really explain the context in any way is very confusing and quite frustrating to me, because it makes it just so much harder for me to understand what their vision actually is. And speaking of, why is this their vision? Why would you choose to want to represent only the quote average girl as opposed to everyone? And this has been a contentious point in the community, so you might disagree with me here, and that's perfectly fine. You know how I love a good discussion, but I really don't understand Star Stable's adamance on only giving us female characters. Yes, I understand that the storyline focuses on a sisterhood, but could anyone point out a single point of the story that would be affected if one of the Soul Riders were male? The only way in which the story revolves around girls is that the main characters just happen to all be girls. And that's about it. I find zero social commentary in the quest lines on anything other than maybe environmentalism with GED, really. Additionally, the story has been retconned and changed so much that I feel it just doesn't hold much power over the game anyway. In newer quests, our character is referred to by they-them pronouns as well, and I really like this change because it's far more inclusive, but it does also make the whole sisterhood argument even weaker. It would honestly just make more sense for the Soul Riders to be referred to as a fellowship or some similar gender-neutral term at this point. It is also argued that there should only be female characters because Star Stable is all about empowering women. But this again just doesn't really land for me at all. Does anyone who identifies as female feel empowered by playing this game? Because being truthful, I don't. And that doesn't mean I dislike the game. I love it very much. There's just nothing that makes me feel empowered. The gameplay is fun to me and I love the horses, but that doesn't make me feel empowered as a woman. Star Stable also don't contribute much outside of the game. Have they ever donated to women's charities? Have they ever raised awareness of women's rights violations across the world? No. And I know some will come and say, well, that's not their place, they're a kids' game. And yeah, but if that's true, then they just shouldn't claim to empower women then. I feel like the most they do is post for hashtag National Women's Day. But And that's about it. It just doesn't make sense to me for them to cling on to that as a reason for essentially excluding an entire gender from the game when their actions just don't support that claim. And yes, men can play the game regardless of the lack of male character models. My boyfriend plays this game and he has little blonde pigtails. He doesn't care. But it still just doesn't make sense to me to remove the option. Thinking that you're empowering women by completely removing men from the space is just such an outdated philosophy in my eyes, and these things can coexist. Also, don't you think that only giving players the option to be female in a horse game feeds directly into that whole horse girl rhetoric Star Stable hates so much? Now, if I got fully into how the whole Ride With Us campaign made me feel, I would be here all day, so just know that I think that energy was majorly misplaced and the whole thing was handled very poorly. But I do find it strange how their whole message was, isn't it sad that girls get bullied for liking horses? Isn't it sad how they're seen as crazy and obsessive? And then they just completely isolate these same girls by removing the option to be anyone else other than a young girl in a horse game. And yeah, boys can still play, but it's the principle of it. Additionally, even if they're 100% adamant on keeping female-only characters, there should at least be more androgynous and flat-chested options. I think one of Star Stable's biggest issues is a lack of options, and in most linear games, that is fine. But in a game that advertises itself as an MMORPG, the role-playing element is completely lost on me. If this was truly an RPG like they claim, we should have options. We should be able to see ourselves in the game, no matter who we are. So this just doesn't make sense to me. Now, you can argue that the androgynous body types and the flat-chested body types, oh well, those will come later, because Star Stable have said that there will be multiple character updates. But I personally think an update as important as this should not come in several parts. No one should have to wait longer than someone else to feel represented in the game, and then that also indirectly just makes it seem like Star Stable is prioritizing certain body types, which is just a strange thing to do. They should all be regarded equally. I'm personally on the slimmer side, more so than the skinniest model we have seen so far, and I'd feel a bit frustrated if I had to wait for my body type to be added. Why not just wait until the entire update is ready and finished? It just seems like Star Stable are rushing this. The test itself seemed rushed to me. If the clothes not being refitted made such a huge difference that we couldn't see the body types correctly, then why on earth would you have started the test? If you wanted feedback on the body types, why didn't you just wait until we could actually see them? Whilst writing this script, Star Stable replied to my comment on their post, switching to say that they want to represent, quote, as many people as possible. And this was just confusing to me, as it directly contradicts what the devblog says. Representing the, quote, average girl is not representing as many people as possible. And due to this, I replied asking for clarification, to which they explained that, quote, there's no one way to be a girl, which is why we are going to bring as many body types to Jorvik as we can. And while I appreciate this clarification, this should have been clearer in the blog. My friends also misunderstood this, so it wasn't just me. Also, this answer is still quite vague. I presume they mean female body types, but they've not confirmed that. And again, if you aim to represent all the girls, why not just represent everyone? It feels like they're so close, yet so far. Just like with the alpha-beta test situation, I fear this is all just a miscommunication. While I can understand the odd mistake, Star Stable seems to be consistent in these misunderstandings. I find it hard to form a proper opinion on these things when it seems that even they aren't sure on what they're saying. It's also hard for me to comment on the supposed improvements that they mentioned they made in regards to the skinniest body type when they've not even shown these. They also have not shown the fully refitted clothes that they mentioned. So how are we supposed to give feedback on something that we can't see? I understand we are no longer in the testing period, but the feedback should be constant. And admittedly, they do say there will be a second beta test in early 2023, but I still would have appreciated at least one image of these improvements. In conclusion, I'm happy these blogs exist, as one of Star Stable's biggest issues is a lack of communication with players. However, I do think their wording still needs some work. In regards to the player update itself, I'm still not convinced. Since the first preview, I have not been a fan of the direction the update is going, though I completely understand that it's subjective. My biggest fear was just that they would not listen to us, and at least now we have confirmation that they are listening and have acknowledged our feedback. I'd just really like to see some physical proof of the improvements they've made soon. So, what do you guys think? Do you like the new characters, or are you hesitant like me? Do you want male/androgynous characters, or do you think Star Stable should remain female only? Let me know in the comments, and as always, just please keep it civil and constructive. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!